the Black Effect Network. Hey y'all, it's Tamika D. Mallory and My Son the General.
That's me.
And Street Politicians is the podcast for the culture. We will be breaking down social and civil rights issues, pop culture, and politics on our podcast every Wednesday. We will have special guests as well with local activists to join the show discussing political issues going on in their community. Listen to Street Politicians on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right.
You probably heard a lot about Portland on the news, about the tear gas and the federal agents with snatch bans and the anarchy. What you probably haven't heard is the truth, because the reality of what happened in Portland is so much stranger, so much more incredible than what the mainstream media was willing to show. I'm Robert Evans, and along with all of the other voices on my podcast, Uprising, A Guide from Portland, I was there. Listen to Uprising, A Guide from Portland on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a Wednesday. It is an absolute pleasure to have you in. We are live in Los Angeles, and this is The Herd. It says it right there on the wall. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. It is great to have you in today. I watched the UFO special last night. Phenomenon. The first time I've watched one in my life.
I thought you didn't believe in aliens.
That was incredible. I don't believe in aliens.
So you had an alien experience.
I did, and I've talked about it before, and I'm not going to get into it, but it was real, and I have no reason to make it up. It makes me sound stupid.
And
Raylan, Washington.
But you don't believe in aliens.
I don't know what I saw, but I watched Phenomenon last night. I bought it. I was scrolling down the television. I just wanted to watch something, so I bought it, and it's a documentary, and it's really credible. You have, like, successful people putting their reputations on the line, not goobers, and you have, like, real video, not like Frisbees. It was the first time I've ever watched a UFO special in my life. I've watched 30 of them, like the rest of you. First time I watched one and thought, that's credible. Something out there.
I'm not an egomaniac, so I believe there's got to be some other intelligent life in the whole universe other than just us. But that's why I believe in aliens.
Yeah.
Plus, you spend enough time around other people and you start to think like,
maybe they're aliens.
I'm not so sure about this.
So, I want to start with this morning. A company I used to work for strategically leaked the NBA schedule for Christmas Day. It's the biggest regular season day in the NBA. Schedule's very good. I'll be watching a lot of NBA on Christmas Day. It's very, very good. I like it a lot. But I think it's interesting. I hear this a lot. Colin, you talk LeBron way too much. Let's look at this schedule the NBA is going to run on Christmas. So where do they put Zion and the defending Eastern Conference champions, the Miami Heat, on a game that's going to be at 9 a.m. Pacific? It'll be the smallest audience. Where do they put Giannis? 11:30 Eastern, up against an NFL game. Where do they put Kawhi Leonard? Oh, that's the late game, 10:30 Eastern. That's just a West Coast game. And where do they put LeBron? Prime time. The biggest rating game will be that 8 Eastern, so the East Coast will watch it. And it starts at 5 Pacific, meaning on Christmas. After you've done your Christmas festivities and had lunch, the fans out west will watch it, and the Midwest will watch it. So Giannis, they put up against an NFL game. Harden, Westbrook are nowhere on the schedule. Miami Heat and Zion, the early game. Kawhi, they dump him late game. The league, the commissioner, and the NBA once again puts LeBron since 2003, 17 straight years. LeBron gets the primetime game on Christmas wearing a Santa outfit. Colin, please talk more Nikola Jokic. No, I'd like to keep my job. Colin, talk more Devin Booker. Why don't you do that with your friends? And they'll still never listen to you. I'm going to talk LeBron. And it's interesting who they put up with LeBron. Luka Doncic. Why? Because the NBA realizes right now they've got a little bit of a dilemma. They would like like to anoint Zion Williamson as a star, but they don't trust his health. They put him on the early game. They don't trust his health. I don't trust his health, and I love him. They would love for Kawhi Leonard to be the next star, but he's a little unique and nonverbal. They would love for Giannis to be the star, but we're 8 years in. In the bubble, they put him on at noon in playoff games. His game doesn't transfix you. NBA's got an issue. They got to find the next star. Ja Morant, he's in Memphis. They got to AD doesn't really talk. They have to find the next star, and they're banking on a kid in the middle of the country in Dallas, Mark Cuban, fun game, 30 a game, overseas player, terrific, Luka Doncic. So it's interesting on this is that we hear this all the time. I have a couple rules in sports. One of them is you can criticize my sports takes all the time, but we think a lot about what we lead shows with. There's a reason I lead probably 75 shows a year, maybe 50, with LeBron James. The league told you. They're putting Giannis up against the NFL. They're burying Kawhi. They got Harden nowhere on Christmas Day. Zion, we can't trust his health. Ja Morant, he's not there. LeBron and Luka. And by the way, they give Kevin Durant, they gave him a nice little spot too. He won't get the number, LeBron will. But they gave Kevin Durant a real spot too. They're crossing their fingers. They wouldn't give Kevin Durant the primetime game. Why? They worry about injuries. But there's a reason LeBron gets it for the 17th year in a row. So I thought this was funny. It's Aaron Rodgers' birthday today, and unfairly people say you don't like Aaron Rodgers. I would vote him MVP this year. He's been terrific. He's been absolutely sensational. And although I defended the Green Bay Packers for drafting a quarterback in the first round, I said, I get it. Aaron's been hurt. I get it. This morning, they look stupid. Because Jordan Love is third string, and Aaron is lighting it up. I know. Colin, it's Jordan Love being drafted that has inspired Aaron Rodgers to be this good. Okay, kid, you stop. What, Aaron was lazy last year? Jordan Love showed up and he worked hard at practice? Give me a break. Let's not give Jordan Love credit because Aaron Rodgers is having a great year. He's had a bunch of them. That's like whenever I hear people praise the college basketball coach because his kids get a good GPA. How about credit the kid who goes to class? I don't want to hear how Bobby Knight made his kids. No, the kids went to class. They get the credit. They took the tests. I don't care about the coach. Aaron Rodgers yesterday went in the Pat McAfee show. Pat's losing weight, by the way. Pat, it's holidays. Have some candy. And flexed a little. Here's Aaron Rodgers on the show.
When it comes to records, I love them and milestones. Like, I do take pride in them. I think they're more things you look back on when you're done playing. I don't think I'm done by any stretch of the imagination, even though some people may have thought so in the off season.
It's interesting. Aaron has a right to flex. He's having a great year, and by the way, that's why they drafted a quarterback. They drafted a quarterback because, and I defended it. But in the end, this morning, what does Green Bay need? The last thing they need is a backup quarterback. They need 2 linebackers. They could use another pass rusher. They didn't take a single wide receiver in that draft, and Devontae Adams, cross your fingers, is amazing, top 2 or 3 receiver, but he does get dinged up a lot. But Aaron gets a flex here, and it's interesting about Aaron. Aaron is, I can make an argument. Aaron is, and I've said this for years about valuable. I think the media doesn't get valuable. Aaron Rodgers is the most valuable player in the National Football League. And probably has been for most of the last 10 years. That doesn't mean he's better than Patrick Mahomes. It's called the most valuable player. Green Bay turns off 95% of free agents. They don't want to play there. They don't have an owner. So Aaron can't walk down the hall to a Jerry Jones. He can't walk down the hall to a Jeffrey Lurie or one of the Rooneys and say, hey man, I need help here. I mean, Andy Reid was asking Patrick Mahomes, who do you want us to draft? Like, Aaron is in a market that needs him significantly more than he needs the Green Bay Packers. I can't say that about almost any, and I'm not saying Mahomes isn't great, but Kansas City won a Super Bowl with Len Dawson, got to the playoffs with lots of guys. Joe Montana, Alex Smith, and Mahomes is great. But there's a balance there that Mahomes is benefiting greatly from Andy Reid, that offensive line, and that front office. He is, I mean, do you think Mahomes would be this good in Jacksonville? I'm going to go no. He'd still be great, but he wouldn't be this. There is an imbalance in Green Bay. Aaron doesn't need the Packers at all. What would they be without him? They'd be awful. They'd be the Jags. They can't stop anybody. So I'm going to give Aaron on his birthday, he gets a flex today. He's in a very unique situation. And I said this for years and years. LeBron's been the NBA's MVP every year he's been in the league. Michael Jordan was the MVP of the NBA every year in his prime. The league literally needed Michael Jordan. He left, 50% of the ratings disappeared into the ether. And we have to be honest about Aaron Rodgers here. There's no franchise in the National Football League that has more of an imbalance between star player and organization and who needs each other more. I mean, Big Ben is great. They won games without Big Ben. And oh, by the way, you don't think if the Rooneys called up and offered Jimmy Garoppolo a contract or Carson Wentz they've always drafted receivers, offensive line. Well, and Big Ben's great. But even when they didn't have Bradshaw and Big Ben, they're still a really good franchise. But Aaron got the flex. And this morning, Green Bay looks like they wasted a pick. It looks like they wasted a pick. And I'm not going to give Jordan Love and the Packers credit because they drafted a kid out of Utah State and Aaron now is having a great year. You want me to believe that Aaron kind of mailed it in the last couple years before Jordan Love, or that he's watching Jordan Love at practice and, ooh, that is a threat. I have got to get my act together. No, Aaron's great. Knows he's great sometimes. That's okay. Get a flex. He gets a flex. Because this morning, that Jordan Love pick, it looks dumb. You're watching Green Bay. They can't stop the run. Looks dumb. Coming up next, it really is interesting. I think when you become iconic like Brady or LeBron, people choose a side. And they refuse to move off their opinion or their side. Can we be honest that Brady right now is actually way better than almost everybody thought? And I'll talk about that. You may not think it's true. We'll prove it's true coming up next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Hello, Earthlings. It's Kesha here, bringing you the devilish sounds and twisted treats of my new podcast, Kesha and the Creepies, where I, your host, Kesha, bring you into my twisted universe, where the supernatural is, well, quite natural. Kesha and the Creepies explores supernatural subjects and alternative lifestyles with today's most exciting pop culture guests and experts in the occult. You may know me from my party jams, like TikTok, We Are Who We Are, but it's my curiosity for the unexplainable and mystical that drives these fascinating conversations that span non-traditional spirituality, psychedelic art, and all things creepy. Listen and follow Kesha and the Creepies on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I'm Eleanor Wells, host of the new podcast About a Girl, and I want to tell you some stories. David Bowie, Freddie Mercury, Paul McCartney, Bob Marley, Jim Morrison. You probably know these names, but this is not really about them. This is about the women behind the legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. Women like Angie Bowie, Mary Austin, Jane Asher, Rita Marley, and Pam Curson. Each episode, I'll give voice to one of these women who have remained muted in the shadows for far too long. These are incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. About a Girl is executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, The 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's the winter. Michelin Endurance XT silicone wiper blades last 2 times longer than other blades. They're available only at Walmart. You should check them out. Winter weather's lousy. Michelin Endurance XT silicone wiper blades. So, the Brady Arians thing, and this is not a small thing to remember. Tom Brady, Joy and I were on the air. I believe we broke the story. Anywho, they had no OTAs, they had no camp, they had no preseason. Now people are saying, okay, we get the excuses. What about now? All right, what about now? Nobody had them beating Kansas City. Almost nobody had them winning the division. We didn't. As I said yesterday, give yourself some credit. You thought they'd be about 9-7, 10-6, and you thought Brady would be better statistically. And oh, by the way, he is. 28 TDs, 11 picks, 65% completion percentage, passer rating at 95, yards per game 275. That's with all new stuff. So I just want to remind you of something. The only 3 quarterbacks with more touchdowns this year are Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. That's it. Okay. The only quarterback with more completions, there isn't one. Tom leads the league. The only quarterback with more passing first downs is Patrick Mahomes. It's interesting. The only quarterback with more 20-plus yard completions, Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Deshaun Watson. The only quarterback with more attempts, there is none. Tom leads the NFL. And by the way, with Aaron Rodgers, with Mahomes, Russell Wilson, they knew the system. Big advantage. Do you think it's a shock that Russell Wilson's leading his division, Patrick Mahomes is leading his division, and Aaron Rodgers is leading his division? Why? Because in a year of COVID and no preseason, they got a jump start in everybody. Tom, September and October, he's learning it, figuring it out. Mike Evans was hurt, Chris Godwin hurt, O.J. Howard left. They picked up Fournette right before the season. Let's do a little blind resume. Because I know we have this feeling that, Tom is really struggling. Although he's not, obviously. Again, he leads the NFL in several categories. So blind resume, we put up Tom Brady's years. For our radio audience, I put Tom on the left and the question mark on the right. So Tom has 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. The mystery quarterback on the right has only 19 touchdowns and 9 picks. The mystery quarterback has a higher completion percentage but throws for less yards per game and about the same passer rating. Who is that? Who is the mystery we all love Kyler Murray. We all love Kyler Murray. All right. Okay. And by the way, Kyler Murray came back with the same coach, and they added DeAndre Hopkins. All right, let's go Tom Brady and mystery quarterback again. Okay, the mystery quarterback. Fewer touchdowns, much lower completion percentage, fewer yards per game, and the passer rating much lower. What would that be? Who's the mystery quarterback? Oh, that's Tom in New England. Ask Cam Newton how that New England thing works out when you're throwing to stiffs. If you don't believe Tom Brady, if you think he's washed, go look at his numbers last year in New England. Cam Newton, have you seen his numbers this year? And Cam Newton's got talent. Cam Newton is not untalented. Cam Newton's an MVP. Tom Brady's numbers last year in New England are shockingly good. They're like, Matt Stafford this year, except Stafford's got Kenny Golladay and has guys who can run and catch. So for everybody that's freaking out, Tom is fine, Tom is good. Mahomes, Rodgers, Wilson, nobody thought Tom Brady is as good as those guys. Nobody thought that. But he lines up with everybody else pretty well, considering all the other top quarterbacks had the system, had the coordinator, had the preseason, had the camp, they had that experience at least 1 year last year. By the way, Cam has 4 touchdowns and 9 picks this year. So you go look at Brady's numbers last year, it's like, wow. If you thought he was washed, go look at his numbers last year and look what Cam's doing. With same coach, same offensive coordinator. Offensive line's actually better. Enjoy with the news.
No. Herd on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
There have been some calls for Jalen Hurts to take over the
Yes.
Eagles with Carson Wentz struggling so much this season, but Hurts' presence may be a contributing factor to Wentz's bad performance. He reportedly was very upset when Philly drafted Hurts in the second round this year. The belief is that Wentz already had to prove he was worthy of the starting job after Nick Foles, and is once again uncertain if the team is committed to him long term.
Can I throw this out?
Yes.
So he already had the deal with the Nick Foles statue thing.
Sure.
So if you watch Philadelphia, I don't think backup quarterback was the thing they needed most. But I want to remind everybody that last year Carson Wentz, dealing with historically bizarre injuries.
Absolutely.
27 TDs, 7 picks, 93 passer rating, won his division, 4,000 yards, 64% completion percentage, and played all 16 games. His reward for that, and he's not Aaron Rodgers 37, he's 27. His reward for that was a quarterback in the second round. And when you watch them play, and you watch their offensive line, and you watch their wide receivers, and you watch their linebacking core, because I do think their secondary is talented, all I'm saying is, I get it. I'm not saying, like Jalen Hurts to me, I thought second round was a little high, but I get the fact that I have a statue outside of my stadium with Nick Foles. Could you be a little sensitive to a guy that feels like the city's not really behind him? Just a little sensitive.
I'm torn on this because, one, I am a very competitive person.
Yes.
And I live with the lingering anxiety that at any moment things could change. So I just believe in working hard and doing a good job all the time. This is a competitive industry that you're in, the NFL. And while I hated the Jordan Love pick, and I didn't particularly love the Jalen Hurts pick, you have to go out there and compete. And Nick Foles won the Super Bowl. You didn't.
I know.
Why? Because you were injured. So that's someone's fault, right? But that's what happened. So had he won the Super Bowl and then there was a statue of Nick Foles because he came in and did some trick play or something, then okay, maybe you'd be a little sensitive.
Well,
like I'm sympathetic to Aaron Rodgers having an attitude about Jordan Love. Carson Wentz is like, man, come on, you got to go out there and compete.
Okay, so let me say this. In the NBA, it's understood. You would go to your star player and ask, hey, does James Harden fit with you? I mean,
Sure.
that's kind of the understanding.
Yeah.
And that guy's not even replacing you. The NBA will ask their star, do you want to play alongside him? In the NFL, the guy you draft can replace you. And so Wentz is like, bro, I saw last year we had no receivers and no offensive linemen. Look at my numbers. Could you give me a,
I don't think it was the right pick.
Right.
Like, I agree with that. But the idea that, like, someone can always replace you, of course someone can always replace you. What have you accomplished?
I think you have to be sensitive to people's history, and I think Philadelphia wasn't sensitive enough about this full statue thing, which has been
very millennial.
Well, he is a millennial.
I mean, I'm a millennial, but I'm just saying, like, this is, I try to be very, not even try to, I'm naturally aware to personalities and the emotional side of sports and the personal side of sports.
Yes.
But I do think that there is something to, when you're Aaron Rodgers, you can be pissed that they took Jordan Love.
Yeah.
You're 13-3 in an NFC Championship game the year before. It's a little ridiculous. Carson Wentz, like, and I don't think it's just this. I think Frank Reich is a huge factor that's being overlooked in this situation.
It's a multifaceted issue.
The injuries or something.
Yes.
I think he has a little bit of a confidence hit. There's multiple factors playing into why he's playing this way this year.
Yeah.
But you got to go out and compete at the end of the day. So the Giants control their destiny in the NFC East right now.
They do.
They are 4-7, but they hold the tiebreaker over Washington for first place. And according to Fox Bet, they are the favorites to win their first division title since 2011 at plus 210. Washington is a close second at plus 220. Then the Eagles and Cowboys follow them up. The Giants' remaining schedule is at the Seahawks.
Then it gets easy.
Then the Cardinals, Browns, at the Ravens, and the Cowboys.
So they get the Cardinals, the Browns, and the Cowboys at home.
Yes.
I think they win those games. Dave Gettleman, who I thought initially was kind of a goober at the microphone. I thought he was the opposite of Mike Tomlin and Gruden. He was brutal.
Wasn't my favorite either.
He was bad in front of the microphone. I gotta be honest, that OBJ trade has really been valuable. Dexter Lawrence and a starting guard and Jabril Peppers have played well. And he had a very interesting draft, and this Daniel Jones can play a little bit when he cuts down. We have to be reasonable in our business. Just because we have an initial strong take doesn't mean I can't move off it. I was so anti-Gettleman. The Joe Judge hire looks good. That OBJ trade this morning looks pretty darn good. I liked their draft last year, and I gotta be honest. This is not a terrible football team. They are a Saquon Barkley and a receiver away from being really, really interesting.
It's always good for our business when the Cowboys are playing well, right? So, but this is a down year for the Cowboys. I love what the Giants are doing, and I feel like the NFL is better when the Giants are competitive.
Yeah, so do I.
One of those like blue blood cornerstone organizations in the NFL.
Like the Bears.
Yeah, so I'm always rooting for them to do well, and they're in New York. Like it's just there's a lot of factors, but I'm excited about everything they're doing, and I actually am rooting for them to win this division because I think it has the most value for the New York Giants in that division, trending upwards and growing with the head coach that you want and the quarterback. You're gonna get Saquon back next year, so they are the only ones. They control their own destiny. Everyone else is going to need things to happen in order to win the division at this point. So Kevin Durant is a few weeks away from making his Brooklyn Nets debut. I'm very excited about the Nets story this year.
I'm very excited about him. I think
lots of content.
I think they'll blow up, but I do think he'll be great.
Well, he hasn't played since rupturing his Achilles in the 2019 NBA Finals, but he is confident. He is ready to return.
I definitely used to have crazy anxiety wondering how I was going to play the next day or next series, and it used to drive me crazy, you know what I'm saying? And for my mental health, I guess, it's easier for me to have this approach of just, waiting to see what happens, and then falling back on the work that I put in, you know what I'm saying? And if I fall back on that work, then, I don't have to worry too much about what happened. I already know it'll come naturally.
I think the league misses him. I really do.
Absolutely.
I think the league missed Steph Curry and Kevin Durant last year. They really this is an offensive league. He's one of the 5, 7, 8 great offensive players of my life, and I think the league missed him.
It's an outside, out of mind society that we're in right now, and Kevin Durant is great. I can't wait to see how this all works out. Kyrie's going to be back as well. He hasn't played a game since February 1st. I know people are very skeptical about this. I don't know what to expect, but it's just going to be one of those situations that I can't wait to watch. They also have 12 other players returning from last season, and if you pay attention to the Nets last year, they were building something. They did well in the bubble. They have a lot of good veterans on that team, so I'm very excited to have Kevin Durant back. And Kyrie, I can't wait to watch this team.
Yeah, they'll be one of the best watches.
Yes.
That goes without. They'll be one of the best watches. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Co-host of First Things First, my buddy, Nick Wright. We disagree a lot on stuff. Last week was a rare agreement almost across the board, and he is now joining me live, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. So everybody, Colin, you talk too much LeBron, and I thought it was interesting. They put Giannis and the Christmas schedule up against the NFL, and they buried Kawhi on the West Coast game. And they even kind of bailed on Zion a little bit. Maybe they don't know if you can build around a kid who gets hurt. What did you make of the Christmas schedule, which once again, 17 straight years, had LeBron right in prime time?
Well, you knew the Lakers would be exactly where they were, and they should be the defending champs. They're the overwhelming favorites. They have the best player in the league. What I found most interesting was who they're playing. Because they're playing Luka. That's who they're playing is Luka. Not the Mavs, it's Luka. And I think it's incredibly smart by the league. You have the face of the league of the last 15 years in LeBron up against the guy who I believe is going to be the face of the league the next decade, and I'll make my first NBA season prediction right here on this show. Luka's going to win the league MVP this year, Colin. I mean, he's played 6 career playoff games, and he already has as many career playoff triple-doubles as Steph or Jordan. Yeah. He already has more career 40-point playoff games than Giannis. I think he's going to be league MVP, and I think the NBA knows you can rely on it.
Yes.
So I think it's partially, you knew LeBron was going to be there, but it was curious who were they going to be playing. And to me, this is the league coronating Luka as the next big thing, and I think that is exactly right.
I've often said, Nick, that don't just judge people by what they do when they arrive, but what happens when they leave. Like when Jim Harbaugh left the Niners, they struggled for 5 years. Harbaugh absolutely knows how to coach, although he struggled at Michigan this year. Brady has left New England. Cam is not untalented. It is a disaster offensively. And if you look at Brady's numbers, take out Mahomes, take out Russell, take out Aaron, those guys are, it's different. He's 43. That we're kind of overstating Brady's struggles a bit. Is that fair?
No, it's not fair at all. And I saw your blind resumes. I thought they were almost as unfair as anything you've done. There's a lot of things I want to discuss here, so I'm glad you asked me about it. You put up Brady's stats, and you were like, hey, he's first in attempts. As if attempts is attempts. I'm first in shot attempts. Well, how many are you making? What's your percentage? Because he's 23rd in yards per attempt, which I think is a little more relevant. You also, it was surprising, you left out a very important stat he's second in the league in. Interceptions. That didn't make your old list right there. Then you were like, hey, here's a blind resume. Brady and a quarterback we love. And the quarterback we love was Kyler Murray. But you didn't include with his 40% of Kyler's game, which is what he does with his legs. What Brady does with his legs is uses them to cushion his fall when he's avoiding a sack. And then you're like, hey, here's another blind resume. Brady versus a quarterback we all loved. And it was Tom Brady last year. And I'm like, well, there are some of us, most notably me, who told you last year he stunk too. So no, I give you no quarter on this whatsoever. He was on the decline last season. I told you about it. Now, clearly, Cam has been awful. I love Cam. Either his shoulder's not right or something's wrong with him. Post-COVID, I don't know. But he hasn't been good. But the Brady defense, you know how I knew the Brady defense was coming? I'm going to reveal something to the audience right here.
Yeah.
Colin called me midway through Brady's third quarter meltdown to distract me from watching my beloved Chiefs annihilate his beloved Tom Brady. He called me, he's like, so, what do you think about the Georgia elections coming up? I'm like, Colin, I'm watching football. He's like, no, let's talk. And I actually ended up having to hang up on him because he was trying to distract me from watching Brady throw the game away, so I'm not going to allow that to happen here.
All right, fair enough. So, we know, it almost goes without saying, is that in baseball you can't win a World Series with a bad bullpen. You just can't. Dodgers almost did, by the way.
Sure.
And then in the NFL, as good as Patrick Mahomes is, he wouldn't be as good running for his life, is that the Chiefs' offensive line is pretty darn good. You have to have a decent offensive line. So Carson Wentz is missing a Pro Bowl left tackle, a Pro Bowl guard, and the kid they drafted last year, Andre Dillard, doesn't play. And he's running for his life, and he made the Seahawks look like the 75 Steelers. He's running for his life. Jalen Reagor can't separate. Zach Ertz isn't playing. Alshon Jeffrey shot. Can't we at least acknowledge that he had a very solid year last year, and some of this is they're out of players again. They don't have any difference makers, and he's running for his life on every play.
So, here's my issue with Carson. And I've been very high on Carson.
Yes.
And I no longer am. At some point, he turns 28 this month. He's in year 5. He's on a massive contract. Some of this has to be on him. And he has an uncanny ability to turn a bad play into a horrendous play. In 2017, what made him great was he was under duress, he was under pressure, and somehow he made magic happen. This year, he's under duress, he's under pressure, and he's turning a sack into a fumble. He's turning a throwaway into an interception, and that's a huge problem. So I will adjust for talent and injury accordingly, but he is, statistically speaking, the worst quarterback in football. So if he were having a down year, and it's like the offensive line, the wide receivers, if he was like the 18th ranked quarterback in football, then maybe. But when he is right now the 36th ranked quarterback in football, and there's only 32 teams, it's got to somewhat be on him. And this whole idea that he got his feelings hurt by them drafting Jalen Hurts, I'm not here for that. It's professional football. And they gave you a big contract. You're getting paid. You need to play better. So I'm as down on Wentz right now as I ever have been.
So I've said this for years. Valuable isn't best, greatest, or statistically superior. Valuable means what are they without you? Mahomes is better than Rodgers. One of the reasons I like him isn't talent. It's that Mahomes plays much better from behind. There's a coolness to him, a connectivity with his teammates. His body language is great. It just comes out of every pore. You'd never feel out of a game. And when Aaron plays from behind, I don't even like his body language. I just don't even like the way he looks. But so Mahomes is better. But most valuable player. Mahomes has a better coach. He's got better weapons. I think Rodgers is the MVP, most valuable player in the league. Fair this year?
I mean, it's not unfair. It's also not right. Mahomes is the best and the most valuable player. 2 points on this one. And Rodgers, I think, should come in second. In 2011, Drew Brees set the all-time record for completion percentage, set the all-time record for passing yards. His team went 13-3, and he didn't win league MVP. Because Aaron Rodgers that year, his team went 15-1. He had 45 touchdowns to 6 picks, and it was just impossible to vote for someone else. That's where I think we're headed with Mahomes, where Rodgers is going to play the Brees role, and Mahomes is going to play the role Rodgers did. But there's one other point on this I want you to make, and I'm going to ask you, as my close personal friend and mentor, to join this with me. There is a burgeoning media narrative that the Packers drafted Jordan Love not as a player, but as an emotional cudgel, as a motivational tool for Aaron Rodgers, and that therefore makes it a savvy pick. It is a ridiculous assertion, and it must be debunked. If I came to dinner tonight and told my 15-year-old daughter, honey, I blew the college fund on gambling this weekend, and then she goes on to get a scholarship, that doesn't make it a great parenting move that I blew the money. It means I got bailed out by someone else's brilliance.
Right.
And this idea that Brian Gutekunst, who passed on DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown 3 times, Terry McLaurin 4 times, and then drafted a guy who right now can't beat out Tim Boyle to be their second-string quarterback, that he's going to get credit for motivating Rodgers, it's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
So I need you to join with me on this and not be a part of that narrative, please.
Yeah, I talked about this earlier today. I'm supposed to believe that Aaron Rodgers was lazy and apathetic and didn't work hard, and Jordan Love in practice, he's like,
insane.
oh my God, I've got to really go to practice. I got to show up on time now.
Yes.
Makes no sense.
It's an awful, and a lot of people believe it, and they're like Gutekunst playing 4-dimensional chess. He's playing Connect 4 at best, and Rodgers is bailing him out, and it bothers me where this is going. So thank you for that, Colin.
Good seeing you, buddy. First things first, Nick Wright. Have a good day, bud.
You too.
All right. Coming up next, the college football playoff rankings. I don't even care who finished in the top 4, because we know they're really good. I have another complaint. And it's about, Nick was just ripping the media. I'm going to rip the media because they do this every year, and it's absurd, and I'll talk about it next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. The new season of my podcast is back with more probing conversations that get at the heart of the issues that are keeping us up at night. From sex and dating during COVID to the stark reality that the gender gap is a lot wider than we thought, and the true ramifications of misinformation.
These ideas that coronavirus is really just about government control, that it's infringing on civil liberties, all of these ideas are similar ideas to the anti-vaccine movement.
So where do we go from here? Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get ready to laugh and learn. I'm Nick Smith.
I am Flamin' Road. I am he, she, we. He cash a check, she make the money, we spend it.
Laugh and Learn is a weekly podcast bringing you the latest headlines.
The infighting within the LGBT community is ridiculous. Baby, let me tell you about that rainbow in the front. Check the back of it. Potholes, thunderstorms, gunshots, all that.
Keeping you politically informed.
Because that's what we do. We wait to the presidency, but we don't think about all the steps that it takes to get to the presidency, which is congressmen and senators and judges and people to put in place to think like us and look like us.
Mixed in with a little pop culture.
They ain't went to no Ice Cube. Understand, Ice Cube ain't even got that much juice. He ain't got that much power. This ain't Bad Boys in the Hood. He ain't Dope Boy.
You never know what you're gonna hear.
Don't I look like Beyonce Mama? Don't I look like Beyonce Mama?
Subscribe and listen to Laugh and Learn on the iHeartRadio app or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Nothing says holiday cheer like RecTech. These are great grills. Wood pellet, stainless steel, 6-year warranty. Built by grillers for grillers. RecTech with a Q.com, RECTEQ.com. So they had the college football playoff rankings. I mean, folks, they're the same every year. I'm not going to argue about this. They had Bama 1, Notre Dame 2, Clemson 3, Ohio State 4. Fine. This wouldn't be mine, but I don't care. Here's what I want to talk about. And this is where I'm going to have to. I'm not going to lecture the media, but I'm over it. Get over fairness, folks. There's dynasties in women's tennis. There's been dynasty in men's tennis. There's been dynasties in golf. We have a dynasty in college football. I mean, Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City are going to win their division for 10 of the next 11 years. Stop trying to play nice and tell me that BYU at number 13, 9-0, you're outraged that Georgia at 6-2 is way ahead of them. They should be. Here is officially the dumbest argument in sports by the media. Here we go. How can this and this is every year, how can this 2 or 3 loss SEC team be ahead of my 1 loss or no loss blank team? I don't know, because they're better in stuff. Yeah, Georgia's lost to Bama and Florida, arguably 2 of the top 3 teams in the country. The 5th place SEC team last year was Auburn. They beat Bama, and they beat Oregon with Justin Herbert. Oregon won its conference, and they lost 4 games. To LSU, to Georgia, to Florida, all top 10 teams. Stop the argument. Okay, how can a 2-loss SEC team be ahead of a 1-loss blank team? I'll go to 3 or 4 losses. Auburn last year was better than almost every 1-loss team in the country. I ought to have taken Auburn head-to-head. I always do. How? Oh, I don't know. Because Georgia, the last 4 years in recruiting, has been 1st, 2nd, 1st, and 3rd. BYU has been 66 or worse. You can't count that. Hell, I can't. It's a subjective vote. It's not the NFL. We don't have playoffs. Don't you as an NFL fan? You watch free agency, you watch your coaching hires, you watch the draft, and then you make your NFL predictions based on no games played, on who you acquired, who you drafted. And you make your NFL predictions. You argue with me. You feel strongly. Well, college football doesn't have a playoff, so that's the only way I can judge, based on speculation. And I'm not supposed to look at recruiting? The SEC last year had 15 of the 32 first-round picks. It may be worse this year. They had 3 of the top 5 picks. The ACC is now a 1-team conference. The Big 12's a 1-team conference. The Big 10's a 1-team conference. I like Northwestern. They're not Ohio State. Whatever the Big 10 has to do, get Ohio State into the playoff. Just, I don't care what it is. Get them in. Now, the Pac-10 is not a 1-team conference. It may be a no-team conference. No team looks like they can play with the SEC. So, this idea, BYU did not have anybody drafted in the NFL draft last year. Nobody. Georgia's going to have 8, 9, 10, 12 players. If you look at just the eye test, college football demands that I judge based on subjective criteria, because all teams don't play the same schedule. An SEC schedule is significantly harder than a Pac-12 schedule. I mean, if you don't face Ohio State in the Big 10, I mean, that is a huge break. If you don't play Bama in the SEC, you still got to go to Auburn, you got to go to Gainesville. I mean, you still got to go to LSU, you got to go to Georgia. So, I'm sorry, Georgia, everybody for Georgia's football team would start over every single BYU player except the quarterback. And quarterbacks matter. They don't matter that much. But I will always, always, always give the SEC the benefit of the doubt. Why? Because I have eyes. Because I can watch football. They're faster, they're bigger, they're stronger. And that's not my opinion. That is the opinion of every single NFL general manager. Because they're drafting more SEC guys. And this idea that I can't consider recruiting. Georgia's better than BYU. Why? Because I follow recruiting. Well, you can't. Yes, I can. You demand that I give a preseason college football ranking. And these teams lose like 35 guys to graduation every year. So you make me make a preseason vote based on a bunch of new players I've never seen. Don't you at Kentucky basketball? Don't you think they're going to win the SEC next year? And yet, you're depending on high school players. So you fight for your right to back Kentucky, but I can't fight for my right for Georgia because they had 5 straight number 1, 2, or 3, or 4 classes. So I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear, Georgia's got 2 losses, and this team's undefeated. Your conference stinks. You got no NFL players. I got eyes. I'm sorry. I'm always going to give the Auburn 9-4. Beat Bama and Oregon. And they were considered down last year. Hour 2 next.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and NBC News senior business correspondent, and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. Times were complicated a year ago, but now, complicated doesn't seem to cover it. Sometimes it feels like we're now being asked to play a game where the rules have changed, but we don't know what those new rules are. So I want to try and figure it out together. The new season of my podcast, Modern Rules, is back with more probing conversations, because how else can we meet the demands of these crazy times unless we're at the very least trying to get smarter? From sex and dating during COVID to the dangers of misinformation campaigns. We're talking about all of it.
And so what I see coming is, however this ends, that next phase will be a really exciting beginning for sex and relationships. I think it's going to lead to an actual, like a post-COVID sexual revolution.
Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You already know that The Challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected, or which challenges were too dangerous for TV? Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official Challenge podcast. Hosted by your girl Tori and me, Anissa, we're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of The Challenge. Let's go, baby. Listen to MTV's official Challenge podcast starting on December 10th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everybody, this is Jill Scott, and I am pleased to introduce you to J.L, the podcast. I am joined by my amazing, brilliant girlfriends, Laia St. Clair.
What up, though?
And Aja Graydon Dantzler. Hey y'all. We are going to be talking about a lot of amazing things like individuality, family, and blackness. Listen when you're on your long drive home. Listen when you're shopping at the grocery store. But listen to J.L, the podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go, hour 2 on a Wednesday live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. Joel Klatt in about 5 minutes. He's not going to like my SEC take, but he's going to have to deal with it. Strong take, to be honest with you. Joy Taylor is joining me today. We have a little LeBron news.
We do.
Go ahead.
I love the de-escalation of LeBron announcements. So, Shams Charania tweeted that LeBron has agreed to a 2-year, $85 million maximum contract extension with the Lakers. Rich Paul told The Athletic that today.
Boy, Rich Paul's had a good year. He's making a lot of money.
Yes, doing very well. Went from the decision to I'm coming home article to like a tweet statement, and now it's just
Shams.
We're just letting. I mean, that's not small, but not quite as dramatic as the decision.
Well, it's interesting because it was about 5-6 years ago. Many people were saying that Kevin Durant was better than LeBron. I didn't buy into it, but Kevin Durant's great. Nobody disputes that. Probably the second best player in the league if he was healthy, which you cross your fingers on that. But the difference between LeBron and KD is really that LeBron is strategic and Kevin is impulsive, and it has shaped their career. That's the difference. There's a story out today that Kevin Durant denies that he had talks with James Harden. Of course he did. Kevin's impulsive. Kevin once got engaged. When asked why, he said, quote, "Because all my friends were doing it." Nothing wrong with that, but that's impulsive. That would be impulsive. LeBron's moves are always strategic. So he goes to Cleveland, and they cannot get him a second-rate player. And so he's like, I want to win championships. So he strategically goes to Miami and wins championships. Then he's got the titles. Now he was the NBA's villain. He's like, that's not great for my brand. It's not great for my brand. And I want to go home, and for my legacy, they got some pretty interesting pieces. Kyrie Irving can play. So he goes home, wins a championship. And then nobody in Cleveland at that point burned a jersey when he left because he delivered. Nobody was upset. They almost understood, oh, Kyrie's out, he's going to leave. Cleveland understood it. He delivered for that. Then he goes to Los Angeles for a business move and a great brand because he wanted to, and it's been brilliant. TV shows, movies, acceleration of his net worth, mogul stage, and also it's Los Angeles. It attracts players like Miami that can elevate me as I get older and play less. Everything strategic. LeBron's moves, and I just happen to be friends, pretty good friends with two of LeBron's best friends, and they're very smart guys. Everything's strategic. Kevin Durant tends to be more impulsive. So Kevin, and by the way, lots of people are impulsive. It doesn't mean Kevin's any less talented, but his moves, he's in Oklahoma City, and instead of like really being aggressive and going and saying, I'm better than Westbrook, what are we doing here? He's kind of passive aggressive, and he says, I'm leaving, I'm going to go to Golden State. But he went from a ball-centric guard to two guards in Steph and Clay that would take a bunch of shots. And he wanted to be the man, but he went to an organization where he would never be the man because Steph is the Warriors. Kevin's more talented in his prime, but Steph is the Warrior. And then he leaves, and he's, I'm going to go, surprised all of us, Brooklyn. I thought it was going to be the Knicks. And then he goes to Kyrie, who is, at best, a little flaky. At best. That feels impulsive. So when the James Harden story came out, I thought, oh, yeah, this is what, you show me what you are, and I believe you. And that's not a knock. I love watching Kevin Durant. I think he's a remarkable, probably one of the top 5 or 6 scorers I've ever seen in basketball. He's a 7-footer who can drive past you, put it in the deck, score, post, jam, shoot. He's really unstoppable. I have a buddy, Mark Few, that coaches at Gonzaga, and he was an assistant coach on an Olympic team one time, and he said, and it's just all great players. He said, when you see Kevin Durant with all the other great players, you're like, oh, offensively, he's way better than all of them. And it's like Harden and LeBron. It's like Kevin's one of the all-time great offensive players. But he's impulsive. And I do think it will unravel a little bit of his legacy, because I think Brooklyn's going to be, at some point, a little bit of a mess. But there is a big distinction between strategic and impulsive. And I always feel with LeBron, he really everything's about business. And by the way, he's 3 for 3. Miami worked, Cleveland worked, Lakers is working better than I thought. Actually, let's bring on the voice of college football. Joel Klatt is coming to the show. Fox NFL draft analyst, former Colorado quarterback. It's good
What's
to see
up, man?
you.
So, how you doing?
Oh, sensational.
I bet. I mean, there was a lot of name dropping on that last segment. Boy, did you know he's friends with LeBron's friends, everybody?
Is that name dropping or is that
No,
accurate?
it's not name dropping at all, Colin. I would do it more.
So, anyway. Let me just say this. So, I am tired of one argument. Because I am fact-based and science defender.
Oh,
it's all
great.
I'm about.
Here we go.
If I hear one more time, how can you put a 2-loss Georgia team above BYU? Because I have eyes and they're way better.
Okay.
I'm going to consider recruiting. I'm going to consider the draft. And when year after year, these SEC teams are all top 8 in recruiting.
Yeah.
And in the NFL draft, half the first round is SEC. In a subjective sport, when I have to vote, I'm going to think, well, that team's got 32 NFL guys and BYU has 1. Why can't I make that? Auburn went 9-4. They beat Bama and Oregon. And they were the 5th place SEC team.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I don't think that the SEC is quite as strong this year as they were a year ago. And Auburn's a great point.
By the way, is anybody? Big Ten's not either.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten is down, but you could make an argument that all these teams look down because they haven't had the cupcakes to beat up on. right? And those records aren't quite as impressive because we're playing
Let
conference-only
me
games.
just stop you there. I don't think any conference is as good. Michigan's a mess. Penn State's, the Big Ten's down. Those are. I don't buy Miami Hurricanes. Pac-12, I've seen Oregon play. Sorry, Washington looks small to me. And by the way, Texas ain't working.
No, because of Notre Dame's inclusion this year, the ACC is better than it has been in the past. The SEC is top-heavy this year with Bama. To your point about Georgia, though, the pushback I would give you is that it can't just be a beauty contest, right? In the Olympics, we don't just say, like, well, you know, this person wins the gold medal because we just know they're better.
Why can't it be a beauty contest?
Well, because the game has to matter, right? Like, or else why do we have a score?
Well, Georgia doesn't have 6 losses. They've got 2 to Bama.
Right, and I understand that, but they also have not played dominant football even in the last couple of weeks. Everyone's been like, boy, they've been great in the last couple of weeks. I'm like, pump the brakes. You beat a South Carolina team that just fired their coach. You played a former assistant, and Mike Bobo was the interim head coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks, who are a terrible team, by the way. You beat Mississippi State by 7. I mean, Mississippi State beat Vandy by 7. That's a winless team that's hopeless and just fired their coach. I mean, Mississippi just beat Mississippi State by the exact same score, 31-24. So I just think that this notion that Georgia has earned that spot outside of recruiting rankings is false. Now, if you want to include them, that's fine. That's your prerogative. I think that we should not rank teams based on recruiting rankings, and we should rank them based on what happens on the field, or else we don't have any way for teams to earn their way into the conversation. Okay. And I think that you're pointing more of this towards BYU. I feel some animus towards BYU.
I
sure you do. Because you know why? You're in the middle of the country, and Colin just likes to go there to ski. True story. Am I wrong?
I like skiing.
I do.
But BYU, Provo's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, cleanest city in America. There's no doubt about it. I played some minor league baseball there.
Beautiful.
And I've got some friends there.
Yeah.
Friends. So what I would say about BYU, though, is you have to keep in mind that this year is so much different because, like, on BYU's original schedule, you had Michigan State, Arizona State, you had Stanford, you had Utah. Like, there were all sorts of Power 5 teams that then pulled themselves off of that schedule. So BYU scrambled to keep the schedule intact at all. But here, hold on. All I'm trying to tell you is the same type of people that are sitting in the committee room telling me that BYU is no good based on their schedule are the same type of people that are preventing BYU from having a good schedule in the first place. The athletic directors. So I don't want to hold it against these kids who don't make the schedule themselves. Zach Wilson is in the Heisman conversation. I think he could be a first-round draft pick, by the way.
Yeah,
you want to talk about draft picks and prospects? How about the best position on the field? Georgia would trade quarterbacks for Zach Wilson in a heartbeat. So this notion that BYU is just not anywhere close to as good as Georgia, I'm not sure if that's the case this year. By the way, in the last 2 years, BYU has beaten Wisconsin, Tennessee.
Tennessee stinks.
Fine, they're one of your SEC darlings, though. They recruit better than BYU. They've recruited in the top 15. But you just told me 2 minutes ago that recruiting is all I need to know.
No, I didn't say it's all I need to know. I said it is I am a strong proponent of looking at who do you have. Now, if Georgia had 5 losses, I'd be like, get out of here.
Oh, so that's what it takes. Your standard is 5 losses. You have to have 5 losses.
In the SEC.
But no losses for BYU in a schedule that they had to make, from the scrap heap, is no good. Just get out of here.
So you're giving BYU credit for games they didn't play. You're like, well, these teams backed out. Well, that's the breaks.
I'm also looking at the games that they did play. And while their schedule... Not a lot of great teams. I'll be the first to admit this. However, what should a good team or a great team do against bad competition? What should they do?
Beat them by 50.
Okay, so BYU leads the country in point differential. 33.7, even better than any of the other schools in the country. They're second in the country in yard margin per game. So what are they supposed to do? Like, what's Zach Wilson supposed to do? Kalani Sitake. You tell me.
No, I'm not.
Just recruit better?
No.
Well, they need to have the bag man come in? But I'm just wondering, because you're telling me that recruiting matters, so is it all about recruiting?
No, it's about 75%.
Okay, so do the games matter at all?
25%.
Okay, so if they're only mattering 25%, what are we doing? Why even play the games?
Well, for revenue, for big networks.
Oh, so it's just about revenue.
No, I think the games actually matter, but
only 25%.
In a subjective sport,
but it's not completely subjective.
No. That's why games matter too. Let's go 50-50. 50 on games, 50 on. So you have to win some.
Okay,
games.
so in the biggest 2 games that Georgia played, they got their doors blown off, and their precious defense got hammered by Florida and Alabama.
I didn't say Georgia should be in the playoff. I just said they're better
than
than BYU.
You were defending their top 10 ranking.
Yeah, they're about 10th, 8th, 7th. They're better than BYU.
You know, if we actually had math that made sense. See, folks, here's the deal. Like, if you just understand math even basically, you would understand that a 13 variable equation, which is what the committee is, has a high statistical variance of each variable. Okay, so one bias here or there is going to like wildly swing the outcome.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, in the BCS system, while it only included 2 teams at the end, you had hundreds, if not thousands, of inputs, variables. So the statistical variance of those variables was much lower than what we have right now. So I'm supposed to be told that the 13 people in that room know better, even though they're the same type of people that are holding BYU down from a schedule standpoint, when all the human polls and computer polls that would have been used in the BCS would have put BYU right around 7th or 8th.
Okay, let me ask you this. Your kids' college education, BYU, Georgia play tomorrow. Who do you bet on? Georgia's going to blow them out?
I don't know if they blow them out. I really don't. Well, the better quarterback lies on the BYU side. I don't know what I'm going to get from Georgia's quarterback. Who's going to play quarterback?
He won't
Dwan
have to.
Mathis
They'll
just
turn it
transferred.
off and hand it to
They
the
got the
running
walk-on
backs.
kid that didn't do much.
I think if asked, where do you put your kids? Where do we put our 401ks?
What would be the Vegas spread? Probably 7. I would say 7
for a drunk handicapper. They're going to blow them out by 20 points.
I don't think so.
Let's get on
Georgia.
that.
Georgia may win, but the games still have to matter. BYU's done everything asked of them, and the only reason their schedule is composed the way that it is because of the type of the people that are sitting in the committee room. I think your take is short-sighted.
No. I think first of all, I've always argued this: the people in the committee always get ripped. The March Madness people always get ripped. Nothing against Jay Billis, but he'd be arguing, I can't believe VCU doesn't make the tournament. Listen, these people on these committees, they sit and watch games all weekend. They give up their social life to watch games. I think they're generally pretty smart.
I'm supposed to have empathy for the committee who gets it wrong.
But I think they're more right than wrong.
The only empathy I have for the committee is the fact that the criteria has never been set in a firm fashion for them. So they're left to their own accord. They're like children playing in a park with no rules.
That's not.
They're going to injure themselves. Children.
I am pro-committee. I think they buy and large.
You're pro-committee. You're also just like beauty contest recruiting rankings.
Well, I mean, let's face it.
Well, then, guys, Texas hasn't lost their 5th game, and their composite ranking is really high. They're going to have some draft picks. They should be in the top 10. Colin, you know what? I agree. Let's put Texas in the top 10, everybody. No, because their recruiting rankings have been really good. So they haven't had that magical 5th loss that you talked about. So Texas comes in at number 8. My new top 10, Longhorns, number 8.
The difference is the Big 12 is a pillow fight. So I don't take a Big 12 team like Tech. They can't recruit their own state. I think Tech. Let's shift to Texas.
And the SEC is?
Oh, it's a great conference.
Oh, it is this year. It is. Like great teams out there. Man, did you see Vandy play last week? They were so good. How about Kentucky? Man, Kentucky is really coming for it. I tell you what, South Carolina too. They just paid $13.5 million for Will Muschamp not to coach.
I can take the bottom of every conference and make fun of it.
Can you take these body blows that I'm giving you today, though?
Really? Hey, I'm Roy Jones Jr.
I guess. Listen, if this is a draw, then...
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So, let's talk about Texas, because I thought Tom Herman, he was aggressive, he could recruit. Urban Meyer, he worked under... Urban Meyer hired him, so I know Urban hires good coaches. And he'd won. And all of a sudden I watch in Texas. Now, I've had friends who have dealt with him and said he's difficult and
but
prickly.
How cool are these friends?
Well, I will say this. Let me just say this about Texas. There's no excuse. I don't want to hear this fairness argument to lose to Iowa State. I don't give a rip about Matt Campbell.
I mean, but
they're bad right now.
Like the games shouldn't matter and we should just be looking at the recruiting rankings.
Texas?
In that case, let's give Tom an extension.
Be honest about Tom. You're disappointed.
Tom has underperformed, and I think he would admit that. However it's also true that they are in better shape than when he got there. Both of those can be true. That's not me defending. That's not me taking a stance either way. the rub right now with Texas is that they are playing to their level of competition, regardless of what that competition
And
is.
losing.
And sometimes they lose those games, and sometimes they win those games. So in one year, like a couple of years ago, when they beat your precious Georgia team in the Sugar Bowl, they played up and then won those close games because, in large part, their offensive line played well. They ran the ball well. They did some of those things. Now they make far too many mistakes. Penalties are an issue. They turn the ball over, and they don't make critical plays late in the game. And so they play to their level of competition. Then they make those little mistakes, and they lose the close games. And I think that's rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. I thought Tom was going to have to win the rest of his games in order to stay. I don't know this to be fact, but I know that there's a lot of animus, and I do believe that there is momentum to change down there. Now, who they're going to get, I'm not quite sure.
How many years he been there?
This is his 4th year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's a lot of years.
It's enough. It's enough years.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's fair.
In particular, to beat an Iowa State team. Even if Iowa State is playing really well, and Matt Campbell's done a great job. By the way, Matt Campbell, probably the best candidate out there in college football.
Yes, I agree. They're fun to watch. I've watched them actually the last couple of years, about twice a year. They're clever.
It's Breece Hall, their running back, stated it this way. He said, 5-star culture beats 5-star players. You know, but that flies in the face of every argument you've made here today.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, snarky guy.
Do
you realize
he doesn't like it when I come in here?
You realize if you took Clemson out, just take one program in the country out, Clemson, SEC wins the championship every year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, but you're never going to get me to say that the SEC is not the best conference. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't allow games to matter, right? Like
I do, 50%. That's my thing. They matter 50%.
I mean, that's asinine. You can't say that 50%.
All right.
The games have to matter.
You're right. 58%.
Oh man,
you're asked because all these teams outside of Bama always lose.
Well, Bama's the best team. By the way, we might be arguing just total moot points because Bama is right now far and away the best team in college football. Yes.
I mean, we thought they were. They blow out Auburn. It's like it didn't even look physically competitive. It's like okay. No, it's just.
By the way, Mac Jones, I think he's played himself into the first round and the Heisman conversation. Watch out for Mac Jones. I told you all the way back at the beginning of the season, Mac could have a Joe Burrow type year. And while he's not going to be the number 1 pick, and he's certainly not Joe Burrow, I'm just saying, like, here's a guy that before the season you'd be like, oh yeah, Bama's got that kid at quarterback. Yeah. Mac Jones.
What's his strength? What's his strength?
3 things. He prepares incredibly well, so he understands defense, right? And you can tell his audibles that he makes, his adjustments on the field, where the football goes, his anticipation, that's number 2, and then his accuracy down the field. He throws a beautiful deep ball, and granted, he's thrown to great players, but I will tell you, he throws a beautiful
That ball hung in the air. That wasn't a great throw.
Oh, my
Hold
goodness.
on, let me see this one right here.
What are we doing?
Okay, guys wide open.
Oh, look at that. In stride over the outside shoulder against your precious Georgia team. Isn't Georgia the best team in the country?
Let me see this one.
Let's
I mean, come on, guys. Oh, he underthrew that one, by the way.
What are you talking about?
Let's watch again.
Where was the defense?
By the way,
the defense
this is
wasn't
his
there.
highlight reel.
Boom.
That one's great.
How
but
about
guys
that? In stride.
Wide open.
How many times do you see that?
Don't see that in the NFL unless you're playing the Jags. Here's
My
another one.
goodness.
Let's see it. Let's watch this throw.
Nice pump fake.
Let's see this.
Gets him to bite. Oh, boom. Draws him right back in.
Wide open by 10 strides.
It wasn't wide open by 10 strides.
This is his highlight reel. These should be perfect. Let me see. Oh, jeez. There's another guy within a football field.
You know why? Do you know why? Okay, but folks, if you don't see this playing on FS1 right now, that was a fake RPO. Okay, so he gives the play fake, and then he gives a huge pump fake to fake the slant pass to Devontae Smith. Guess what that detail-oriented football does? Fake, and then boom, a big pump fake, not just with his shoulders, but with his arm as well. The safety bites up. You know why Devontae Smith was wide open by 10 yards? Because of the detail of the quarterback position.
Oh, my God. This is nonsense.
All right, I want to bet right now. I want whatever you want.
Fox bet. Let's go.
That Mac Jones is drafted in the first round.
Oh, he will be, no question.
Well, then what's your problem?
Well,
I thought that's all that mattered.
No, I don't buy into this.
You're recruiting in first-round draft picks, and now you're changing your tune. I can't follow this.
Listen,
the inconsistencies run rampant.
I have to put a wet blanket on some of you hype masters out there.
Hype masters.
This is America's honesty broker. Joy is a witness. All right. I got to move on. I got big stories to break. We got a lot of stuff. Joy's got a whopper of a story coming up.
Joy, great to see you.
You too, Joel. I actually thought you explained the math part of the conversation
I
very
love bringing
well.
Thank you, Joy.
I love bringing guests on who talk algebra. It's great radio.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts?
or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick. Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at stuffyoushouldknow.com or wherever books are sold.
Street Politicians is a show for the people. I am Tamika D. Mallory, the one who is always right.
And I'm my son, the one who is never wrong.
And catch us every Wednesday on the Black Effect Network, breaking down social and civil rights issues, pop culture, and politics in hopes of pushing our culture forward to make the world a better place for generations to come. But that's not all. We will also have special guests to add their thoughts on the topics, as well as break down different political issues with local activists in their community.
We might not always agree, we might not always be right, we're not going to always be wrong, but we're going to always be okay.
If you like to be informed and to expand your thoughts, then listen to Street Politicians on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right.
In 3 days, it's the fight event of the fall as undefeated Errol Spence Jr. takes on Danny Garcia for the World Welterweight Championship, available on pay-per-view, or buy the fight on foxsports.com/ppv or watch on any screen you want.
It's going to be a good fight.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
I will watch. All right, we got some good stuff. Big story here. Joy Taylor with the news.
Heard on the news. This is the Herd Line News, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Best or nothing.
The Clippers struggled to find team chemistry last season.
They did.
And it reportedly stems from preferential treatment that was given to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. According to The Athletic, a very big story on this came out today, that those perks included personal security guards and trainers, control over the team's practice and travel schedule and their personal playing time, and later post-game media time slots. Also, Kawhi was allowed to live in San Diego, which often made him late for practices and team flights. All this reportedly made it very difficult for the rest of the team to buy in and eventually destroy the culture that had been built in previous seasons, because obviously the Clippers kind of moved away from, the Blake Griffin type era, and we're now in hardcore, blue collar, sort of rebranding of the Clippers that they had built. A scrappy team.
Yeah, they were like it's the same thing with Brooklyn. Brooklyn and the Clippers last couple of years have been a chemistry play, not a talent play.
Yes.
And then you get talent and you give them certain special gifts, and the chemistry dudes don't like it.
Well, yes, but I would say a big part of this, just from reading the article, that doesn't necessarily apply in Brooklyn, that would apply here. Kyrie and KD are both champions. So they both have rings.
So Kawhi was, but Paul wasn't. So maybe it was Paul more than Kawhi teammates.
Well, Paul was a big part of it, which we heard a little bit about in the bubble, that a lot of players were not buying into Paul George. Kawhi is obviously not a vocal leader. Paul George was trying to be that, but where are your credentials to be that? And because they didn't have the team chemistry going into the bubble, all that time together in the bubble, they were behind all the other teams that had that going on. I think sometimes the chemistry thing, we're not really sure how much of that is really playing into it. At the end of the day, can you come together? If you're front runners, I don't know that the chemistry really matters as much. But if you're going to have to overcome something, then that is where the issues lie. Kawhi has a whole, from reading the article, all of these things that he wants to do. He has a pregame, private, stretching, warm-up session in certain places. They had to empty the locker room for that, so then, the staffers would have to go into the women's locker room, so then the women's staffers couldn't use the women's locker room. It's just a trickle-down effect of, okay, this is a lot, and is this really helping anyone else in the team but you?
Yeah,
maybe this is what you do, but maybe you need to be more flexible.
Yeah, and the Clippers probably, and a lot of this was probably negotiated when Kawhi came. Like they basically, in the end, the solution in the NBA is then get other glue guys. You have to have Paul George and Kawhi, and if the chemistry guys like Montrezl Harrell don't like it, then move off chemistry guys and get. I mean, I'm going to back the Stars on this, even though I think some of it sounds absurd and extreme. But James Harden is quirky. There's no other James Harden in the league, so I'm going to back the Star on that.
I'm also going to back the Stars. I do think that it does at some point become a self-awareness thing.
Thank you. Yeah, LeBron has demands, but LeBron's always been pretty good.
And he's very inclusive.
Yes.
So even though he is aware that he's getting extra special treatment, he's going to try and make it feel like everyone's a part of the special treatment that he's getting.
Yeah, self-awareness has often separated the good players from the great ones in this league, and LeBron's got self-awareness.
And it also helps if you have the credentials to be in that space. So, like, while Kawhi might have been a lot, it's Kawhi, and Paul George, you can't necessarily do what Kawhi does, even though you're a star, because you don't have any of these things.
That's right.
And he does.
Yeah, that's very fair.
So, another guy that has a ring, Aaron Rodgers, is proving he's still one of the top quarterbacks in the league as he puts up MVP numbers this season. And on the Pat McAfee show, he took the opportunity to tell his critics that he still has a lot left in the tank.
When it comes to records, I love them and milestones. Like, I do take pride in them. I think there are more things you look back on when you're done playing. I don't think I'm done by any stretch of imagination, even though some people may have thought so in the offseason.
Boom!
You know, I thought that they were going to struggle a little bit more this season than last season because I thought, well, I thought Jordan Love was going to be able to win the backup spot.
Why also they lost Blake Martinez, who was a tackling machine at linebacker, and that's a guy that most fans out of Green Bay don't know a ton about, but boy, was that a loss.
They also did not, they didn't get the pick that they needed to get at the Jordan Love position. I did not like that pick at all. I am with Nick Wright, and I'm with you. I don't believe that Aaron Rodgers needs like extra motivation to go be great. Like
I don't buy that nonsense.
And listen, maybe if Jordan Love was really good, then I could buy into that a little bit.
Yeah, no, if he looked like Joe Burrow at practice.
There's a little drum beat there. We're hearing a little here, a little there. Okay, maybe that pushed him a little bit. But he's not even the backup quarterback. He's the third-string quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's not motivating Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is just great. I thought they were going to have a little more chemistry issues. They obviously still needed some positions because they did not get to the Super Bowl last year despite having a great season.
It's very possible the Packers whiffed on their first and second round picks. It's very possible because that running back, A.J. Dillon, isn't getting any touches either.
I just think Aaron Rodgers has every right to be
flexing.
He does. So finally, the 49ers are still in the playoff hunt, even without Garoppolo and George Kittle in the lineup. They both have been out since getting injured in Week 8. But Kyle Shanahan is still holding out hope that they'll be able to return this season. He said they're starting to get some work in on their own, and the team will see how they progress over the next couple weeks. That feels extremely optimistic.
I thought Garoppolo was coming back, though. Wasn't he?
There was a conversation that he was coming back this season, but I mean, at what point? Like, if he's back for the last 2 games of the season, that's not how, like, is that, we really feel like they're still going to be behind at that point?
It's interesting because that division beats up on each other. So if the Seahawks lose to the Rams, that's a division, like, it's not Kansas City pulling away. That's a division where I could see them winning ugly for 3 weeks in a row. Garoppolo comes back and you look up and you're like, if we win our last 3 games, we're a wild card team.
I think they had a nice win over the Rams.
I mean, look at them. They're 5-6. They're 1 game back of the Cardinals in their division. They're only 2 back of the Rams.
Well, their remaining schedules: Bills, Washington, at the Cowboys, at the Cardinals, and Seahawks.
The Bills game's your season. Feels like your season.
Yeah.
Gotta win now.
You have to win the Bills game. I don't know. I'm not as optimistic about the 49ers. I think it's great that they're still playing well.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're still in the hunt without Garoppolo and Kittle, but this feels like a little bit of a stretch. I think at the end, the healthier teams are going to end up coming out on top. I think it's great that they're still competitive, but we'll see how it progresses over the next couple weeks.
Good stuff, Joey, with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie
Bill
News.
Belichick gushing over Justin Herbert, the Chargers quarterback. They play each other this week. Why the Chargers should make a run, as crazy as it sounds, at Bill Belichick. I'll talk about that coming up. Plus Steve Smith, Sr., Probably going to get some Hall of Fame votes. All-time great receiver joining it.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. The new season of my podcast is back with more probing conversations that get at the heart of the issues that are keeping us up at night. From sex and dating during COVID to the stark reality that the gender gap is a lot wider than we thought, and the true ramifications of misinformation.
These ideas that coronavirus is really just about government control, that it's infringing on civil liberties, all of these ideas are similar ideas to the anti-vaccine movement.
So where do we go from here? Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you dealing with best life burnout, constantly striving for more, and quite frankly, over it? Maybe you just want more joy, peace, and laughter in your life now. Well then let's go. Welcome to your new favorite podcast, Hot Happy Mess, hosted by me, your girl, Zuri Hall. Join us each week as we discuss dating, relationships, self-care, career wins and losses, and so much more. Oh, and moments like this. You know what? Sometimes the grass is greener on the other side because it's fake.
Well, that's why I mentioned muting. There are some people who will check you.
Oh, we got some petty people in our lives. I was crying by the water because I was happy.
And I do love a clear.
Not liquor. Wine will be spilled, laughs will be had, and a few tears might be shed. Messes will be made, but we're gonna find our magic in the middle of them. Don't miss new episodes every Monday. Find Hot Happy Mess on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Casper Mattress, 1,500 perforations. Create a cooling system so you sleep at night and it's cool. Boy, I slept well last night. I'm really into that melatonin stuff. 3 milligrams every other night, Joy. I'm not kidding you.
You know what you made me do? You made me get pizza yesterday.
Oh, I love pizza.
Because you mentioned it on the pre-show meeting yesterday morning, and I couldn't stop thinking about it.
I know.
So I got pizza.
You should never stop thinking about pizza.
It was good. I don't regret it. But it's your fault.
Patriots face the Chargers this weekend. Belichick talking about Justin Herbert, who, by the way, has a 101 passer rating as a rookie with no preseason. Thrown for 3,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, 7 picks, 67% completion percentage. He's a monster. Big, strong, mobile, smart. Got a new haircut, too. Here's Belichick talking about Justin Herbert.
Yeah, he's impressive. Very talented player. Tall, sees things well, has a good arm, can certainly make all the throws. He's athletic, definitely escape the pocket. Smart. Looks like he's going to be a good quarterback for a long time. A lot to work with. And I know he's a smart, hard-working kid that likes football, and I'm sure he'll continue to get better as he has this year throughout the course of the season. I think he's got all the tools.
I mean, listen, I like Burrow, but he's a bigger, stronger Burrow with a much better arm than Burrow. Like a much better arm than Burrow. He's got to be smarter because he was a 4.2 biology major. So Herbert is just a remarkable player. The numbers he's putting up, and with a coaching staff that's doing him a disservice. By the way, they're going to hire a new coach for the LA Chargers. That's understood. They're going to do that. I'll tell you right now, you get buried in Los Angeles, you have to think about your market. You get buried in Los Angeles very fast. That's why the Lakers, they get LeBron and AD from the sports page. The Dodgers get Mookie Betts. They were winning their division, but when LeBron came to town, Dodgers are like, okay, we're getting buried here. Dodgers go get Mookie Betts. The Clippers, Kawhi and Paul George. Rams, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. They got to go big on this. I'd call Belichick and Urban Meyer. Do not go small. Do not hire a coordinator for Justin Herbert. Go big, because this kid is an all-timer. This kid's got Elway talent. He is Andrew Luck with a better arm. That's how good I think Justin Herbert could be. Steve, let's get Steve Smith in here, the former Pro Bowl wide receiver, played in the NFL for 16 years and was a Pro Bowler for over a third of them, joining it now live NFL Network as well. And a lot of you don't know this, he's a world traveler. Guy travels all the time. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I want to ask you about this. Wide receivers, great ones, need the ball. And Brady goes to Tampa, and they got Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. It's AB and Ronald Jones and Gronk. Is it possible that it could create, not animosity, but you got too many mouths to feed for Tom Brady?
No, I don't think he has too many mouths to feed. I think there is a struggle with the coaching staff to figure out how to do it and also do it the way that Brady is comfortable doing it. You know, sometimes coaches get so creative in the X's and O's, and my coworker uses this all the time, Mike Robinson, but allowing the Jimmies and Joes to actually make the plays. You know, when you draw up a great, fantastic play, it has no heartbeat. Those little X's don't move. In the real world on the field, they move, right? Like they had a great concept on how to cover Tyreek Hill in the defensive meeting room in air conditioner on a piece of paper. But that guy got on the field and Davis was in trouble, and he found out real quickly how much he was in trouble. So that's just an example of why you can't do so much coaching that you lose the ability to let the game speak for itself.
Where are you right now? Lamar Jackson will not play against the Steelers. He will play against the Cowboys next week. Where are you with Lamar Jackson right now, his development, and where he's at, Steve?
It's a struggle right now because obviously having so much ties to that organization and also being an offensive-minded guy, you can't put it all on Lamar, and here's why. Lamar is not calling his play. He's not sitting at the line of scrimmage, auto-going into and out of plays like we see here in Carolina, Teddy Bridgewater, or we've seen in the past a Ben Roethlisberger or a Tom Brady, Drew Brees. He's getting a call in and flipping up his wristband and looking at all those things. And so I don't believe it's fair to put all this on him as if he's calling his own plays. He's not. He is calling what they are giving him. And the game plan is starting to catch up with them. People are starting to figure them out. And they have to make some, Greg Roman needs to make some adjustments because his quarterback is getting the brunt of it all. But it's not Lamar. I hate to say it, it's not Lamar, and it's not the lack of weapons they have because you don't throw the ball, right? And they run a RPO, which is run pass option. They run a RO, run option, and very few P's in the pass.
Where are you on Carson Wentz these days? 3 offensive linemen out with injuries. Alshon Jeffrey kind of looks shot. Where are you at with Wentz these days?
I mean, I like Wentz. He has a strong arm, but he also, since they won a Super Bowl, you can see he struggles and he tries to always make the big play.
Yeah.
He is trying to show everyone that it was my team. It was. But Nick Foles won that. And then also, too, is I like Doug Peterson, but he seems to, all these guys that have been under an Andy Reid are trying to outdo Andy Reid. Matt Nagy, they're so creative, but they aren't Andy Reid. Stop trying to outdo the teacher and just be the student, right? The only guy that seems to have gotten it together a little bit is Frank Wright.
Yeah.
But all the guys that have been under Andy Reid they're throwing the ball, they're doing all this stuff, they're doing this fancy stuff, and it's coming to bite them in the butt, to be honest.
Where are you with Cam Newton today? Would you sign him for another year, draft a quarterback? Where are you on Cam?
I think you really have to look at this team. New England Patriots have a number of issues. Defensively, they're stout, but they do have some guys on offense. You desire a little bit more. And so I think it is an unfair assessment to say, where is he? Because also, too, we're not in the locker room. We're not on the practice field. The reason why they're running these plays is because of this. We don't really know, but we do know, based on his history, you're showing it right here, 9 of 18 and for 84 yards. That is not a Cam Newton that we all have known to love and dislike. There are a lot of people that dislike him. There's a lot of people that love him. But 9 for 18 for 84 yards and 2 interceptions, that's not the Cam Newton that we all know. And that's not even a quarterback for the New England Patriots that we all know. So it'll be interesting to see how they finish out the season. And when they finish out the season, how does it really go? Does it go good, or does it really fall apart, or do they squeak one out and then get blown out in the playoffs?
Okay, Steve Smith, NFL Network, every Thursday, NFL game day kickoff leading up to Thursday Night Football. It's great seeing you. Come on anytime. And happy to have you on, buddy. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Merry Christmas.
Steve Smith Sr. I saw him play at Utah. That's how old I am. He was great at Utah. Tough guy. He's a tough guy. One day I was at a restaurant, Manhattan Beach, and he walked in. He just got back from, South Korea. He, travels all over the world. He's just like an adventure. The Justin Herbert thing is really fascinating because, let me go back to that. We started the segment with this. So Belichick plays Justin Herbert, bragging about him. In Los Angeles, it's just so many things to do. USC football, Clay Helton, nice guy, not much of a presence. They've disappeared. It used to be like a Laker USC town. USC's disappeared. Anthony Lynn, nice guy, not a huge media presence. They've disappeared. If you're the Chargers, it's not just about winning. You have to create a presence or you'll disappear in the city. This is not Indianapolis. This is not New Orleans. People don't show up to the games. You have to get them to the games. Unless you're like the Dodgers and your family's been going for 100 years to the Dodger games. Then Laker games. But when you're new in town in Los Angeles, when you're new in town, you have no history.
Yeah, they're not a legacy team.
You got to go big. You got to get Urban Meyer on the phone or Belichick. And you just say, Belichick, I'm going to mostly give you I'm going to let you do what you did in New England. $10 million a year, run it. To me, when you don't have legacy in a town like Los Angeles, you have got to go over the top with a coaching hire. Hour 3 next.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
We are back and black on the Black Effect Network. Hey y'all, it's Tamika D. Mallory and my son, the General.
That's me.
And Street Politicians is the podcast for the culture. We will be breaking down social and civil rights issues, pop culture, and politics on our podcast every Wednesday. We will have special guests as well with local activists to join the show discussing political issues going on in their community. Listen to Street Politicians on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right.
I'm Debbie Brown, the host of the Dropping Gems podcast, a podcast about the depth and potential of personal growth. No one's journey is the same as the next, but the magic of being human shows up in the things we have in common. Our capacity for love, pain, joy, sadness, togetherness, and solitude are things that make us perfectly imperfect, and I want to explore with you how we can live our best through it all. The new season of Dropping Gems is available now. Listen to Dropping Gems on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Are you ready for best life minus the burnout? I'm Zuri Hall from NBC's Access Hollywood, and my new podcast, Hot Happy Mess, is all about the most important VIP, you. You're the star of your life, so own it. Join us each Monday as we discuss relationships, self-care, career, and much more. Our podcast is for mindful, ambitious, diverse millennial women who are ready for more happiness, laughter, peace, and purpose now. Listen to Hot Happy Mess every week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
We're on the road so much during the holidays, can't afford to have our car break down. Go to carshield.com, 10% off, deductible may apply. Carshield.com, put in the code HERD, let them know we sent you. Good to have you. And Dave Wannstedt's my friend. By the way, the last time the Miami Dolphins won a playoff game, he was the coach. And we were just talking this weekend. He had a Bears team. Good God. I think he had 5-6 years. He had 5 or 6 different quarterbacks. They beat Minnesota in a playoff game. Really, really good Minnesota team. And he still has a place in Chicago. It's near and dear to his heart. National championships with Miami. And obviously with Jimmy Johnson, he won Super Bowls in Dallas. He's my friend. He's joining us, Fox Sports analyst Dave Wannstedt from Chicago. So we were saying this morning. Aaron Rodgers had a birthday, and he took a little subtle shot at the Packers. He said, people thought I was done. They drafted a quarterback. I'm not done yet. So I want you to pretend, because you never got the quarterback, or you'd still be coaching in the league.
You know what? He just, by saying he's not done yet, he just ruined Christmas for Chicago Bear fans. That's the worst thing they could have heard today after that last game. But anyway, go ahead.
You're the coach of the Packers, and the GM tells you, we're going to draft a quarterback out of Utah State, knowing you got rolled by San Francisco twice and you need help defensively. Would you have gone into the room with the GM and fought like hell and said, no, don't tick him off? What would you have done if you coached the Packers and the GM told you, hey, we're going to go draft a quarterback from Utah State?
Well, my reaction 5 minutes after they made the pick was how I feel right now. You got to be careful that you don't turn this into a New England Patriots team. And by that, I mean, when you looked at what Tom Brady had in New England the last couple of years, they had I think they were second in the league in the most drops by wide receivers. I mean, they just didn't have any playmakers, big time. And that's the first reaction I had when they did not take a receiver or a defensive player when they took another quarterback. And then I thought maybe what happened in free agency. Are they going to go out and sign a defensive guy, or are they going to sign a receiver? And it didn't happen then. So they obviously, have their reasons, but boy, it just from a distance, it just doesn't seem like it makes sense, because that window is going to start closing. And, I don't know what it is with Aaron Rodgers, 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4 more years, but the window's going to close, and you got to, when you're hot, you got to take it.
It's the reality, Herb Edwards told me this, and you've told me this, if you have a quarterback, you don't go into broadcasting, you stay in football, and I mean, that's the reality of it. You're in Chicago, and we both like Matt Nagy, but in the end, it's a bit of a mess. I mean, now they're paying Foles a lot, and he's a backup. Do you just go out? I mean, Coach, do you go out because they have a defense? They don't have much of an identity on either side. Do you roll the dice, move up in the draft, and just admit we whiffed on quarterback and go get another one? What would you fight for if you ran the organization?
Well, the first thing, if I was running the organization before I took another quarterback, I would have to be real clear. What do you want to do with the quarterback? What is our offense? What is our identity? I mean, at this point in the game, this is not the first year where, this is the third year. We're 12 games into the season, and a little bit of run, a little bit of play pass, drop back, 5 out, don't give the offensive line any help. I mean, right now, to me, the biggest problem is they really are very unsure of what they want to do offensively. And I think, Matt Nagy, he came out last week, the first play, 57 yards. They run the ball to David Montgomery against the Packers. At the end of the half, I think he had 6 runs. He ended up with 11 runs. The minute that they got behind by 10 points, in Matt's mind, and I love Matt Nagy, but in his mind, we're behind, put the running game away. And Tony Dungy said it on the air. I was thinking the exact same thing. Don't give up on this running game too soon. Sure enough, they did. And some guys, I'll tell you this, Colin, when I first was interviewing for a job, I was told, it was actually Bill Parcells told me at the Combine, Dave, you're going to interview a lot of offensive coordinators being a head coach. He says, and they're all going to tell you in the interview that they believe in running the football, the importance of the running. Very few of them really do. And that's the truth. I mean, you can do what you want, but it's not going to last if it's not in your heart, and you really don't get what it does for field position and what it does for clock management and what it does for your defense. It's not going to change.
Yeah, no, I think it's real. I think it's. We just had Steve Smith Sr. on. He said all Andy Reid's guys are trying to out clever Andy Reid. There's one Andy Reid, run the football. Okay, so let's go to air. I think Brady's actually, if you look at the numbers, Dave, actually Brady's 28 picks, 11 touchdowns, 95 passer rating, 65. He's been fine. I mean, they didn't have a preseason. He's been fine. But it's you talk about a guy that forgets about the run. Are you surprised? Is the Brady thing worse than you thought, better than you thought? Where are you right now, Arians, Brady, and where they're at offensively?
I was looking this up, looked at something this morning. How about this? Carson Palmer, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, and Jameis Winston. They all, in their first year in this system with Bruce, they all had career-high interceptions. And it looks like it's going to be that way with Tom. I'll say it again. Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, Carson Palmer, and Jameis Winston all had career-high interceptions their first year in this system. And then obviously there, adjustments were made and so forth. And I just think right now that Tom, at his age, I mean, he this is not his game. I mean, in New England, I remember watching, I was working for Fox, the game was the Super Bowl was in Arizona. They were playing Pete Carroll in Seattle. And Tom Brady threw, I think it might have been a half a dozen balls that were 4-yard completions. And the receiver would make somebody miss, and they'd make 7 or 8. And that's his style. And I think this is just foreign to him. And when he gets pressure, he's not a young kid anymore that he can move around and throw off his back foot. They're out of sync right now. They truly are out of sync.
So we know Carson Wentz is talented, big, strong, good arm. We've seen him. We saw him last year, by the way. He had a much better year last year than people think. He had 27 TDs, 7 picks, won the division, and he had all sorts of chaos at receiver, offensive line. So we know he's talented. Something's wrong. And it's interesting. Joey and I have been talking about this. So, he has the Nick Foles statue outside the building. And then they draft Jalen Hurts. And I know, you're supposed to be able to handle that. But what bothers me about the Jalen Hurts thing, if you go look at what Buffalo has done with Josh Allen, they've rebuilt the O-line. They got him Cole Beasley, got him John Brown, got him Stephon Diggs. They draft running back. All they've done is support. Is it fair to at least criticize the Eagles front office and say, you need to be a little more sensitive with Carson Wentz? He's dealing with a Nick Foles backup complex. Jalen Hurts in the second round. Every week there's a question about him. Or should we just say Carson Wentz, toughen up and deal with it?
Yeah, and boy, I don't think there's anybody in the country that doesn't respect and love Jalen Hurts. The way he handled that Alabama benching, and he goes to Oklahoma, first-class guy. You want him in your business. Whatever he does, he's going to make your company better. But, are you going to really draft him and think that he's going to be an NFL quarterback at the next level? I would go back to that. I mean, it's bad enough taking a quarterback, but I think you take a quarterback that's really was not known for throwing the football. So it's almost a double whammy in my mind. And Carson Wentz, I just think that they gave him the big money, $128 million, and I just think that they think that he's better than he really is. And he used to make plays with his feet. He's having a tough time doing that now. He's making bad decisions, which tells you he has no confidence. He's pressing. And then you compound that with the injury. So, why they would take a receiver, and nothing against Jalen Hurts. Like I say, I love the guy. But, boy, you take him in the second round, you're taking him, you're thinking he's going to be your future? Well, if you are, you better go to the offense, the quarterback read offense, because it's going to be different than what they're doing now. I promise you that.
Dave Wannstedt joining us, Bears and Dolphins head coach. I want to talk about Miami. So Miami has Houston's first pick and their own, so they're going to have once again. And, we talk about this, is that, Dave, sometimes the culture changes in all businesses, tech, football, everything. And now we're seeing these college kids come into the NFL, and hell, they're good now. Most of them are making it, and most of them are really good quickly. So Tua gets hurt again, and we think, oh boy, all right, now Tua's hurt.
Yeah.
What if Tua, you put him back in, and he's okay, but he gets dinged up again, would it be crazy to just go out and get another quarterback? Is it nuts? I mean, how long? I know it sounds nuts, but we know Flores is going to have a good defense, so that part I don't worry about. Right. The only thing holding this franchise back, Dave, is the quarterback, and we know it's not Fitzpatrick long term, so it's got to be Tua. What are you going to be if you ran an organization today? What do you got to see from Tua so that you don't go get another quarterback?
You bring up the injury thing. That's interesting, Colin, because that was the one thing. And I was talking to some general managers that before the draft, and they went back to his high school days, and he got hurt in high school. So he's had a history, obviously, of injuries. That was the only negative thing that some people had. You would hope that it's nothing long term. We don't know what's going on inside that locker room. They just got to be careful of this. And I lived it at Miami. And I had Jay Fiedler, and I'm not saying that he's too. Although Jay Fiedler, we won 10 games a year for 4 years with Jay Fiedler, but it was never going to be good enough in Miami because of Dan Marino. Everything is compared to Dan Marino. There may never be another Dan Marino. So at some point, if there's not a problem with Tua and they don't think it's long term, the kid's only played a few games in the NFL. I think you got to roll up your sleeves and commit. And Chan Gailey's the best that there is, their offensive coordinator, quarterback coach here. He's doing a fantastic job between Fitz and Tua. So Miami's a tough city with quarterbacks. I lived it. Like I said, we were winning 10 games a year, and all they wanted to do was get rid of Jay Fiedler. And so you got to be careful, Miami. How much of an opportunity did Josh Rosen get? And Josh Rosen's got talent. Maybe he'll never play in the league. Maybe he's done. But put that aside. He was a high draft pick. They gave up a second-round pick for him, and right away he played 1 or 2 games, and it wasn't good enough. Somebody else in there at that position. You can waste a whole career. A lot of guys can lose jobs by rolling quarterbacks if you have a good one that you just need to spend time with and need to develop. And I think that's the case with Tua. I really do.
By the way, I said with the Seahawks this week, they really impressed me, Dave, is that Green Bay struggled stopping the run, and they have done nothing in the season with talent to change it. Chicago's offense needs juice. Ryan Pace, they've never gone out and acquired anybody. Seattle had a pass rush issue. They went and got Carlos Dunlap. Pete Carroll developed L.J. Collier, good young player. Before the season, they knew they had a pass rush issue. They got Jamal Adams, who's really a linebacker who blitzes. Seattle did something, Dave, it's hard to do. You have a real weakness, and you solve it in the season. Seattle now has got a top 5 pass rush in the league. Your thoughts about a Seattle football team, you go back to your career. Did you ever solve a major problem in the middle of a season?
In the middle of the season, I would say no, but I will tell you this. Our 4th year, we finished training camp. We're ready to... Preseason's over, and we are ready to start off. We're going to open up on Sunday Night Football against the Washington Redskins, who are in the Super Bowl, I think, the year before that or 2 years before that. Great football team, Joe Gibbs. And we went out.
Where were you coaching, Mike?
I'm at the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
And we finished, and we're getting ready to start the season. We're going to open with the Redskins. And myself, Norv Turner, and Jimmy Johnson went to a little Mexican restaurant, and we were sitting there, and we were going around like, what do we need? What do we need? And it was a pass rusher. We had Tony Tolbert, Jim Jeffco, and we had some great guys that really tried hard and were good players, but they weren't difference makers. And within 2 days, Jimmy Johnson made the trade for Charles Haley. We got Charles on a Tuesday. I got him ready. I think he played about 8 or 9 plays for us in third down situations. He played that week. He showed up Tuesday. He played that Sunday against the Redskins, and we won a Super Bowl that year.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to do that. You see a weakness, you got to solve it. You don't have time. Dave Wannstedt, Bears, Dolphins, Hurricanes, Cowboys. Great seeing you, Coach.
Okay, see you Sunday, see. Thank you.
Yeah. No, a little Mexican restaurant, second margarita, you talk yourself into Charles Haley. They weren't going to get Charles after the first margarita. But boy, those second margaritas.
That's usually how it goes with margaritas.
Tequila makes
the decisions are starting to be made.
Don't they say tequila is the aggressive alcohol?
Tequila is one of those alcohols that hits everyone a little differently. Like, some people just cannot and should not drink tequila. I'm not one of those people. I enjoy tequila.
Yeah, but it will make you go out and get a pass rusher. It's been confirmed. Second margarita.
It's gonna make you do things if you have too many.
Hey everybody, this is Jill Scott, and I am pleased to introduce you to J.Ill, the podcast. I am joined by my amazing, brilliant girlfriends, Laia St. Clair. What up, though? And Aja Graydon Dantzler. Hey, y'all. We are going to be talking about a lot of amazing things like individuality, family, and blackness. Oh, Jill, I don't have time to listen to a podcast. Honey, listen when you're soaking in your bathtub. Listen on your long drive home or when you're shopping at the grocery store. Just throw those earbuds in and check out J.Ill, the podcast. Listen to Jill Scott Presents J.Ill, the podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Personal growth is challenging, but it doesn't have to be hard. When we lean into self-inquiry and self-discovery, we're able to love all the tiny little parts of us, even the pieces we don't want other people to know about. And that's what it's really about, right? Self-love, self-acceptance, self-discovery, excavation, expansion. We are the powerful co-creators of our lives. All we need are the tools to get there. I'm Debbie Brown, the host of the Dropping Gems podcast, a podcast about the depth and potential of personal growth. No one's journey is the same as the next, but the magic of being human shows up in the things we have in common. Our capacity for love, pain, joy, sadness, togetherness, and solitude are things that make us perfectly imperfect. And I want to explore with you how we can live our best through it all. New season of Dropping Gems is available now. Listen to Dropping Gems on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Too much of it.
Joy with the news.
Heard on the news. This is the Herdline News.
You're mostly a vodka guy.
It's just, one a night, take the edge off. Just one, don't need a bunch.
Yeah, that's wine for me.
Last night I didn't, but tonight I may.
Yeah, well, you got an NFL game this afternoon.
That's right. Yeah, I probably will.
Maybe have one during the game, which is not going to include Ravens running back Mark Ingram or J.K. Dobbins. They're both eligible to return to play against the Steelers, but neither are going to play. They were not activated for the game today. The team is reportedly being very cautious with them because they missed practice while on the COVID list. So Gus Edwards is still in line to be the starting running back today. They also have Justice Hill and Tyson Williams, who they just promoted from the practice squad. Gus Edwards has had 85 carries for 376 yards and 3 touchdowns this season. Steelers are favored according to Fox Bet by 11.
I would stay away from that. This sounds, obviously Steelers going to win. That rivalry has a weird way of...
It does. If Lamar was playing, then I would...
Oh, God, I would take him in a second if they were getting...
because it's just that game.
Even with all the COVID guys out, I'd take them.
Yeah, but it's just not going to... It's just... Yeah. Once it got moved and all the stuff started building, it lost its Steelers-Ravens luster, certainly from, Thursday. But it's still interesting. I'm going to go...
I'm going to go home and
watch it. It's an NFL game. So the Broncos were forced to play a practice squad wide receiver at quarterback last weekend due to the COVID situation. It did not go well for them. They lost to the Saints 31-3, but Jerry Jones thinks that the Cowboys were in a similar position when they had to start their third-string rookie quarterback Ben DiNucci.
In the NFL, you take risks. You take risks when you put all the quarterbacks in the same room. If you were worried about those things, you can spread them out a little bit. You can save one. I don't know that Denver had any more of a challenge than we've had with DiNucci or with the young quarterbacks that we've had.
Yes, they did. They did.
Yeah, they played a receiver.
Yes, he's a receiver. Ben DiNucci did play against Philly 21-40, 180 yards for 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, but he did appear in 2 other games this season. So he is actually a quarterback.
It is interesting,
and he's practiced at quarterback.
You got to basically, I guess if you run an NFL team, one quarterback, you just put in Zoom meetings mostly, right down the hallway. That's right, what you have to do.
I mean, to Jerry's point, like and I think a lot of teams talked about this, having just a quarterback that's separate for this reason. At that position, it's not an unreasonable thing to do, because then you have Kendall Hinton, who's never even practiced at quarterback, who is now your starter, which is an impossible situation to put someone in just because you played in college. Like, this is completely, you don't practice at that position. It's not the third string quarterback, which is what Jerry's talking about. DiNucci is still a backup quarterback. It's obviously not an ideal situation, but not the same. So Patrick Mahomes may be one of the best players in the NFL right now. I thought this would be interesting to you because you ask a lot of people what they thought of star players the first time that they saw them in practice.
Yes, I asked that a lot.
Tyreek Hill was not impressed with Mahomes when he first saw him in practice with the Chiefs. He said, "I thought he was trash." When he first got here, I was like, this is who y'all drafted right here? That second year, his quarterback mechanics were different. It was like he was spending more time with his quarterback coach, spending more time with Coach Reed, learning the offense. Dude was different. So,
by the way, what we've said, as great as Mahomes is, you stick him in Jacksonville, he's not making the playoffs, and he's just this really talented kid down in Jacksonville. So, like, this prime example is how raw he was. And by the way, this was understood when he got drafted. It was like, yeah, he's super raw.
Super raw, gunslinger.
And then he gets a really good coach, and now actually, he's very low interception guy. He's very much like Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't throw picks.
This is why I don't like him getting compared to other people as far as the draft. I didn't like the Jordan Love comparison. Like, Patrick Mahomes went to a very specific situation, right, where Alex Smith was there, but they weren't committed to him long term, and that was a very clear situation. Also, Alex Smith is the type of guy that's going to, bring him under your wing. You're not going to get that with Aaron Rodgers, at least not in the same way that you would with Alex Smith. Not saying that Aaron Rodgers isn't helping him, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
This is a very unique situation. It doesn't take away anything from what Patrick Mahomes is, but you're absolutely right. Where you go matters
a lot.
And if you are able to overcome a situation when you go there, that's a credit to you. But to what Dave was just saying, there's a lot of situations where guys have lost jobs that they probably just needed more development and a little more time. But this is a competitive.
Yeah.
This is a competitive space. Like, you may not get that, but I thought that was a funny little note from Tyreek Hill.
It was. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Best for last. Would you rather? What would we rather see of developing stories in the NFL down the stretch? What makes for more interesting conversations? Would you rather coming up next?
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
I'm Eleanor Wells, host of the new podcast About a Girl, and I want to tell you some stories. David Bowie, Freddie Mercury, Paul McCartney, Bob Marley, Jim Morrison. You probably know these names, but this is not really about them. This is about the women behind the legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. Women like Angie Bowie, Mary Austin, Jane Asher, Rita Marley, and Pam Curson. Each episode, I'll give voice to one of these women who have remained muted in the shadows for far too long. These are incredible, influential women without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. About a Girl is executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, The 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Legendary artists, musical icons, recognized for decades of impact, influence, and bringing the house down. Each year, some of the most outstanding artists of our time are honored at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And now we've teamed up with iHeartRadio to take you inside those memorable nights with a brand new podcast series, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Induction Vault. You'll hear humble, impassioned, and inspiring speeches from these amazing inductees and the artists who were on hand to honor them. Catch 4 premiere episodes starting Friday, November 6th, featuring the inductions of the Beatles, Stevie Nicks, the Eagles, and NWA. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Induction Vault. Available now with new episodes every Friday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Michelin Endurance Giants XT silicone wiper blades. Real weather proven. Extreme weather proven. Get them at Walmart. Last 2 times longer than all other blades. Michelin. All right, 5 weeks left in the regular season. Okay, we do this about once every couple of months. It's a game called Would You Rather. There's multiple options on something. In what do I think is more interesting, creates better content, is better for football, is better for my eyes? Would you rather, Joy?
Would you rather the Giants win the NFC East or the Eagles win the NFC East?
Interestingly, I'd rather see the Eagles win it. Don't think they will. Because then all the Carson Wentz haters have to go, okay, so he has won the division in back-to-back years with major chaos on the offensive line or at wide receiver. I think the Giants are going to win it, but if you're asking me what creates better drama, it's Wentz winning it again as you all have bailed on him.
The Jets finish with the number 1 pick or the Jags finish with the number 1 pick?
The Jags finish with the number 1 pick because Trevor Lawrence is going to work everywhere. But then it creates a real interesting situation. Would the Jets move off Sam Darnold for Justin Fields? Now, for Trevor Lawrence, you absolutely do. But remember, they've got all these picks because of the Jamal Adams trade. Yeah. They got 7 great picks. Keep Darnold, 7 picks. I'm not so sure they move off him. So I think that creates a fascinating sports argument that it's Sam Darnold and a bunch of picks or Justin Fields. I'm not so sure you keep Darnold there.
The Raiders make the playoffs or the Browns make the playoffs? Would you rather?
I would rather have the Raiders make the playoffs for 2 reasons. I think Gruden is great in the playoffs. 3 reasons. I think the Raiders have a more interesting brand, and Derek Carr is better in every statistical category this year than Baker Mayfield. So I get better quarterback play, bigger star as a coach, and I think you and I have agreed with this. The Raiders are a great brand. They're kind of the rebels, the outlaws of the NFL.
Absolutely. So the Dolphins make the playoffs with Fitzpatrick, or they miss the playoffs with Tua?
I'd rather they make the playoffs with Fitzpatrick, who's averaging over 100 yards more passing a game, because I think Brian Flores deserves to make the playoffs. They feel like a playoff team. It's a great brand, great coaching job. I like to see people rewarded who've done a good job. Just because Tua doesn't make the playoffs doesn't mean they bail on him, but I think Brian Flores needs to be rewarded because I think he's just out-coached and outsmarted a lot of NFL people.
It's a good culture builder for them. Jimmy G stays with the 49ers, or would you rather Jimmy G goes back to the Patriots?
I would rather Jimmy G go to the Patriots. First of all, he'll win both places, okay? He'll win with Belichick. But I do believe the strength of New England's dynasty beyond Belichick and Brady was their offensive line play. And they've drafted a couple of really good young offensive linemen. I don't think Garoppolo. I think it's a very good place for a quarterback with injuries to be. I think New England would be a nice place for him to be. They wouldn't put him in harm's way. I mean, Brady didn't get hit much. And I think the offensive line is the one thing Belichick offensively has drafted well and developed really well as an organization. And San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan's going to get somebody. And I think, frankly, Belichick wants Garoppolo more than Shanahan does. At this point, I think Kyle wants somebody else.
The Cowboys stick with Dak, or the Cowboys draft a quarterback?
Well, I work for Fox, and we have the Cowboys as our premier ratings product. I think it's better if you draft a quarterback. First of all, it's a new story. Second of all, I've seen Dak. He's 6-12 the last 3 years against winning teams, and because you got to pay him, they're up against the cap. We know in the NFL what wins is young quarterbacks not paying him. You can go in free agency. Dak will get a job. Don't kid yourself. Dak will start somewhere. That's not, and I know this is not going to happen. But if you want to be, I don't think Dak's fascinating. I think a new quarterback situation would be fascinating and allow Dallas to nibble at some free agents possible because they'd have some salary space.
Would you rather the Seahawks win the NFC West or the Rams win the NFC West?
Seahawks, because I think they can win the Super Bowl. I don't think the Rams quite look like that team yet. I think Russell Wilson's more entertaining. DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson are so much fun to watch. Selfishly, Seattle has a vibe to it. Like, Seattle games are, as Kevin Clark says that works for the Ringer, there's never been a Seahawk game that's not weird. They play in more...
Yeah, they've never played in a normal game.
They've never played a normal football game. All their games are crazy. And I just think, whereas the Rams win, kind of boringly.
The Ravens miss the playoffs, or the Ravens lose first playoff game.
Either way, Lamar's going to get criticized. Like, we got this narrative going on. I'd rather he miss the playoffs, come in. If he loses another playoff game, we're going to have, for the third year in a row, now you have a narrative. I don't wish for any young player to get stuck in a narrative. But if he doesn't make the playoffs, and by the way, Cleveland's pretty good and the Steelers are great, you can just say, hey, listen, it's a very competitive year. I'd hate to see him lose another playoff game, and now we have a narrative. He can't win a playoff game, and I think that's rough on young. Because for the record, isn't he still like 23 years old or something, 24 years old?
He's very young, and yeah, I'm with you. I think it would be better for them long term if they just missed the playoffs this year. It's a weird year.
Yeah, get a better draft pick, lose more games. Good stuff. By the way, mdrivestart.com. It's one scoop every morning. Chocolate mousse, proteins, digestive enzymes, leans you up, makes you feel great. We're all getting old. Don't let it define you. mdrivestart.com. Happy birthday to Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, happy birthday.
He is 37 years old today. Looks great. Looks fantastic. Having a great year. I'd vote him MVP. So, it's interesting. Not that he's aged quickly, but he didn't play for like 3 years. And then his first year he started, they were like 6 and 10. He got to 37 fast. It didn't feel like that. Like, oh God, he's already 37 years old. Brady and him are only separated by 6 years. Feels weird. We'll see you tomorrow.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You already know that The Challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected?
I have to make a deal with the devil.
Or which challenges were too dangerous for TV?
Is it really blood though?
Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official Challenge podcast. Hosted by none other than me, your girl Tori, and me, Anissa. Starting on December 10th, we're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of The Challenge from two people who lived through all the chaos, insanity, and the drama. Plus, we're going to be interviewing producers, other challengers, and maybe even the occasional superfan. Which means you're going to hear things on this podcast that you will not hear anywhere else. Let's go, baby. Listen to MTV's official Challenge podcast starting on December 10th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.